Episode 6, My Life in Letters. We're going to get right into it. On the phone right now, we have Dave Persue, also known as Persue, originally from San Diego. Dave, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me, man.
Dude, it's imperative that Persue is on this podcast. Me, growing up in the Bay Area, 90s, 80s, 90s, you were one of my graph, heroes. And so having you on this is just had to happen. Thanks so much, dude, for being here.
Well, thank you, man. That means a lot to me. Appreciate it.
I hope so. Yeah. And I mean, dude, you've had that effect on a ton of people, man. I think that you were very influential. But again, for people that don't know, you came out of San Diego. You now live in New York, and your reach is global. And so, this is My Life in Letters, and I am not going to pretend that... Well, actually, I was just going to say something about that. You're a character guy. You consider yourself a character guy, yet you have ill letters, always have. So we'll get into both of those, but I do want to start off asking about your early memories about lettering. And that can be, I would really hope we could start very early, grade school, whatever, as early as you can remember some sort of influence about, letter or type or writing.
I think the first, the logo that had the biggest impression on me was the Star Wars logo. And I remember going to the movies in 1977 with my family, and my father was saying, we're going to go see this movie, Star Wars. And I was 5 years old at the time, and we pull up to the movie theater, and there's a line wrapped around this movie theater in San Diego. It must have been wrapped around this theater twice, maybe 3 times. I don't know, man. It was crazy. Mm-hmm. I've never seen anything like it. And so when the movie started and this big, bold Star Wars came onto the screen, and then, the script, and then Darth Vader and the Stormtroopers, I was stuck, man. And that just kind of blew me away. And I wanted to see that movie as many times as possible. So I think that's the earliest kind of typeset or font that kind of stood out in my mind. And then in middle school and early middle school, I started to see bubble letters, and bubble letters were drawn by girls. They would pass you letters in between classes, just to say, hey, how you doing? Or I think you're cute.
Yeah. Or
something like that, And they were doing stylized bubble letters, and I don't think they had any knowledge of graffiti. It was just something that they did. And so I would copy these bubble letters, when I wrote them back. And then later after that, hip-hop and breakdancing and all that stuff was having its grasp on, the West Coast, and started to affect a lot of kids in my middle school. And so we started to see breakdancing, and then we started to see movies coming out in the movie theaters, Beach Street and breaking and all that stuff. And I would notice the graffiti, but it didn't speak to me at the time. It was way over my head.
But those bubble letters from those girls, that spoke to you, right? So on some level, because they were doing it, you were getting past these notes, so did you say you copied them, or you were learning?
Yeah, I was copying them, or I would write my own thing in bubble letters back to them, but I had no knowledge of graffiti.
But what were those bubbles like? Because I'm sure that, by the way, what year was this that you were passing the letters?
Oh, this was probably 83, 84.
Yeah, so 83, 84, there was bubble... I remember seeing certain bubble letters in a couple of skateboard magazines and things,
Yeah.
That was sort of on my radar. So I wonder if those girls had similar influence. That would make sense. I'm not sure though.
I don't know if they had gotten it from Hello Kitty or something like that. I think they were just drawing clouds.
Yeah.
But in letters, and that's how they probably looked at it.
And so you started doing those, and then, like you said, the movies. So were you seeing hip hop elements in San Diego before the movies? Had you seen?
Yeah, because my sister was kind of bringing it home. I come from a upper middle class neighborhood that really, there's no culture outside of just kind of middle class culture within the area I kind of was raised. My parents come from New York. My dad's Bronx made, and my mom's from Westchester County. So they took us out of being raised on the East Coast and put us in sunny California. You know, we were in a very kind of whitewashed neighborhood, but my sister was going to the clubs at a young age. She was probably underage and sneaking into the clubs, and she was bringing home music like Egyptian Lover and LA Dream Team and World Class Wrecking Crew. And so that's the earliest stuff that I had heard.
Dope.
She would later, a year later, bring back Two Live Crew from Miami because she was living out in Miami. And she brought it back to me in '84, and I was bringing it around to DJs in in my neighborhood, saying like, "Yo, have you heard this shit?"
Really?
Like, hey, we want some pussy, man. Like, what the fuck is that, man? I never heard anything like it, but it was so fresh and so cool, you know. So like, so different stuff. And of course, I was exposed to like the early, you know, I heard Sugar Hill Gang and all that stuff, but.
So it sounds like the music. Well, I'm just interested to hear more about. In '84, there were DJs in your neighborhood. Like that seems pretty, like progressive for California in '84. Like I didn't have that in the down the South Bay, the Bay Area, in '84. But you had that.
It wasn't the white boys. It was the Filipino cat. You know, so it was the Filipino thing. They were embracing the hip hop culture, and they were in like my neighborhood, like North County, San Diego Inland was like there were a lot of Filipino cats. So and like
dude.
what the developers were doing when they were selling the homes, they were curating the neighborhood, so they wouldn't let a lot of Mexican or black families into the neighborhoods, you know, and it was real ill because I heard this story from my grandmother, and my dad is Ashkenazi Jew, so like he's real dark and Middle Eastern, like he could pass for a Mexican looking cat, and like the guy selling the houses leaned over to my grandmother who is a WASP, you know, she's straight Southern Belle, and asked in a roundabout way if we were Mexican, but that's a whole other topic. But anyway, it's like a lot of Filipino cats, and so I was exposed to music a lot through my family, my older brother, my older sister, and then the hip hop stuff with the Filipino cats.
And dude, so you're taking Egyptian Lover over to the Two Live Crew that you're taking over to these.
Yeah, like Two Live Crew and New Order, which is on the opposite end of the spectrum. But but I listen to everything. I listen to like New Romantic. I listen to like Dark Wave, and I listen to all the hip hop all the way up through the late '90s, early 2000s. So I have a very diverse palette for like knowledge when it comes to music within that.
Yeah, that's cool, man. And So you would bring these beats to these DJs. Did they have like b-boy crews, the Filipinos that were spinning?
Yeah, they had b-boy crews, but they had already kind of moved on from b-boy. Like b-boying to them had already been like a fad that was kind of on its way out. This was probably 84, 85, but they were getting more into like, let's throw parties. And they were throwing parties in their garages. Back in the 80s, we would go to the Filipino parties, we would be partying and dancing in the garage. Nice. And that's where that's where we would congregate. Yeah. I was like the token white boy that was kind of like in the mix with the Filipino crowd. And that's where I got introduced to graffiti, and I got my name from a Filipino writer by the name of Expect.
Expect? So
yeah, Xpek.
So Expect. And so let's go back a little bit. Like you are hanging out with these different, for now, Filipino crews. You're saying that you could basically like kind of blend in, or you could kind of exist with them. And then they'd moved on from just like b-boying and throwing parties, but there was like some sort of graffiti element. But before that, like, had you already been like interested in the graph? Like when you saw the movies, did you actually say earlier that you had no interest yet in the graffiti that you saw in the movies?
Yeah, I had no interest, but it was later on when it was probably like 86, 87, I started noticing placas, just like Chicano style writing.
Yeah,
through skateboarding, and then
for people that don't know, they're like in Southern California. There's just this incredible heritage, really, of that Chicano style writing,
especially in San Diego with Chicano Park.
I mean, yes, absolutely, with Chicano Park, and the fact that you were right on the Mexican border, and and it's like I don't know who's really documented well all of that style of writing, and actually how it spread all the way over the California and the Southwest. But I hope someone's documented.
Maybe hand selective very, very loosely, but
someone needs to dig deep into that, because that culture is incredible and influenced just thousands and thousands of people, millions of people probably. But So, okay, so you're taking notice of that writing. You had done Bubbles early on, and then you had seen some, like, New York-style graph in the movies.
Right.
When you go to these, that dude Expect, how did you meet him? He was part of one of the crews, Filipino dude?
Well, probably met him a couple of years later in high school. I was already I was in 11th grade when I started writing graffiti. I was already 17.
What year was that?
So that was probably 88.
Okay, so 88 was when you kind of attribute that year to when you started writing?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I was already kind of, like, by then I was going up to L.A. and, like, places like Cerritos with some of my Filipino friends. Mm-hmm. And they were friends with a gang called, like that went by the name of Satanas.
What was it? What were they called?
They're Satanas, STS.
Okay.
SPG, South Pinoy Gang.
Uh-huh.
And they were kind of like cholos, but they wrote like cholos, blah, blah, blah. But, like,
yeah.
So I wasn't really that much around them, but from time to time I'd go up there and, we'd smoke weed and I'd show my new drawings and stuff. But, like, it wasn't until I met Expect that he got transferred from another high school, and I see this Filipino cat, walking around because we all hung out together, but he was like this lone wolf,
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, I remember we kind of reached out to him and we were like, yo, what's that black book you got in your hands right there? And he was like, yo, it's my Bible. I was like, Bible?
Nice.
So I never seen a Bible that looked like that before. And he was all like, no, man, I write. I go, you write? You write what, like poetry or something like that? No, man, I write graffiti. I'm a graffiti writer. Like talking to me like I'm dumb and shit. I was like, oh, okay. And he opened up the book, man, and I was like blown away. I had never seen like galactic style that he was doing, like all airbrush and colored, all beautiful. Like I thought, wow, man, that's real nice. Like wow, because I like to kind of like go back from when I was a boy. Like I come from a family that kind of like encourages art,
mm-hmm.
and I have artists that have been in my family for centuries.
Really?
So like I've always been drawing. So when I noticed that and I saw it, I said, oh, this guy's onto something else. Like, this is dope.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I like that.
And
so he was like, oh, you like this? Oh, okay, cool. And so we started talking, and he was schooling me about the rules and all this stuff and, like, nicknames and just kind of, like, breaking down the vocabulary of what graffiti and what being a writer was. And I think that night I met him that day at school. It was a Friday. So we were like, yo, let's link up. So he came by and picked me up, and he had a car full of heads, and we just started driving around and catching tags on the freeways and all over the neighborhoods of where I lived.
Sick. I'm glad that you brought up, you come from a family of artists, because I think one thing probably a lot of people would have already tried to ask you by now is, you did your first tag in 88, or you kind of got into graffiti in 88, but when did you first start drawing characters? Were you a doodler?
I started drawing characters when I was about 5, and my grandmother bought me a black book when I was 5 years old. And I started drawing my characters and other drawings inside this book. And my older sister was such a hater, she ripped it up, and my grandmother lost it. But I don't have that book anymore. But I do have a book from 1979 with some of my earliest drawings in it that my mother gave me.
Oh, dude.
And
I'd love to see some of those.
So I've been drawing ever since.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so by the time it's now 88, and you're like in this new cool world, like hip hop world, right? And it's also pretty new and fresh in San Diego. What was the vibe like for you? Were you thinking, okay, I want to do tags, but I also want to do characters? Like, was there someone? I'm jumping a little bit. Was there someone that was inspiring both letters and characters for you?
Well, I've seen what Expect had, and he wasn't really tight on the walls. Like, we kind of started painting walls at the same time, but on paper he was just ill.
I'm sorry, and was it Expect that had that black book that was airbrushed?
Yes.
Okay. Do you remember some of the other writers that he was hanging out with and writing with?
This guy Spur that I still talk to. I don't know. Like, a couple of my friends started writing the same time, and we just came up with names. Like, my name wasn't Persue. My first name was Skunk because I had a pompadour and a blonde tail.
Yes.
And then my second name was Two Tone, and I had those names for probably about 2 weeks, and then Expect gave me the name Persue.
And how did that come up, Persue? Do you know?
We just came up with a list of names, both of us, during our class, and we came back at lunch and sat down and rattled off all these names. And I was like, yo, I like this name, Admire. He's like, nah, man, that's just whack. He's like, yo, this name right here, Persue, nobody's got that. And I was like, oh, bet. Yeah, I like that. And I was spelling it P-R-S-U-E, and it stayed that way up until I did a art show with Bobby Ruiz in the early 90s, and he misspelled my name P-E-R-S-U-E, and that's how that spelling came to be.
Yeah, and have
P-E-R-S.
I'm sure that there's like a fair amount of confusion in how to pronounce it at first.
Yeah.
How much of that do you get? I mean, you probably don't anymore, or as much anymore, but how much did you used to get?
I get that a lot. I'm to people that know me, they call me Persue or Swayze, and to people that don't know me, they call me Pursue. But me being a Gemini, it kind of works out well, like Persue is kind of like the guy that does illegal graffiti, Persue is the style guy and the creator of Bunny Cake, and Swayze is the guy that gets along with everybody.
Oh man, so you got your 3 alter egos.
I've got more than that.
That's awesome. Like keep yourself guarded up. Like why not?
Yeah, artists. Some of the best artists I've ever known are the ones that are able to reinvent themselves. And so,
Oh wow. Well, let's get there. Let's get to that a little bit more. I mean,
I guess we're back in 1988.
Yeah, right? And I'm curious about so you're skunk, right? You're just rolling around San Diego with your two-tone, and you're writing skunk.
I gotta tell you because we weren't rolling around San Diego. We were rolling around North County. North County had a different vibe and very. We had a crew called UCW, and UCW was called Unknown City Writers. And because there weren't any writers up there, I couldn't even consider myself a writer yet. There was nothing happening. And so it took me and curiosity to be like, yo, we need to seek out some San Diego writers. So he had a car, and we would drive down to San Diego on the weekends, or we would ditch class in high school, and we would go look for graffiti all around San Diego. We would just drive to the barrios, and we would drive to the known places that we had heard that there was a legal graffiti wall, and we would just go seek it out.
Hey, for people that don't know San Diego, could you just give a little description of just kind of what it looks like and feels like at that time?
Oh, it's back then. It's just very kind of spread out, very military, police-driven type city, And it's there's about 16 blocks to downtown San Diego, and then everything around that is just suburban sprawl.
But you're up north,
and you got and it goes out for miles.
Yeah, and so you're up north with Spec, and you guys are looking for spots.
Yeah, and but we find a guy by the name of Kid Six up in North County, Escondido area, but he was a paper king, and we sought him out first because he was getting up and he had a good hand style and a cool name and shit like that. But we didn't realize that he was gang affiliated until one night that I had a shotgun held to my head by a rival gang because of his name. And so,
whoa,
that was a pretty ill experience, and probably the earliest kind of tag banging, a tag banger type story that I would have. Or it didn't even exist. Tag banging and graffiti and gangs just didn't exist.
Yeah.
In San Diego, the kings Quasar and Guys and Chino and Zodak and Vapor and Zard and all these guys that were actually doing real hip hop oriented graffiti, they weren't gang related, and I wouldn't meet these guys until a little bit later. But after I kind of severed my ties with Kid Six, I met. Oh, here's a funny story. You're going to get a kick out of this. I think people are going to bug out on this. But I was working at Subway Sandwiches, and it must have been 1990. And my friend and we were looking to start a new crew. And I was talking to him on the phone at Subway, and I was like, yo, I got a name. And I told him, I was like, yo, let's call it TDK, those damn kids. Without any knowledge to the Bay Area TDK at all, because there was no internet. We weren't, we were just young kids, and we didn't know what the hell was happening outside of our box.
That's pretty fresh. That's a pretty fresh name too. Those damn kids,
Yeah, so we started writing to those damn kids around San Diego, and my friend was connected to this writer by the name of Peng1, Peng1, rest in peace. We met him, and he must have put down all his cousins and all the people that he knew in the graffiti circle in San Diego, and TDK became a very prominent crew overnight, and it had it kind of stuck around. We got a legal wall in San Diego. If you go down there and talk to some old cats, and ask them about the pits or the yards where people painted, they would definitely bring up TDK as being a spot where people used to hone in their skills. And this was a yard that was started by this guy Tweak and Peng. So yeah.
At that point, or at the highest point, how many heads were in TDK?
Ooh, man, it was probably about 40. So, it went from, me and my friend, and then when he called me back, he's like, yo, we got, 40 members in TDK, and I was like, yo, that's kind of ill. And so we all went down there to meet them, and it was like, yeah, we were pretty deep, and it was pretty crazy. Was that common that, a crew could spring up that fast and that deep in San Diego at that time? Yeah, because this was probably 90, 91, and so, people were bombing the freeways. It was like LA. LA, if you think about LA in the heyday of how bombed it was, San Diego was no different. Especially the greater area of San Diego near downtown. It was crushed. Yeah, so if you drive around downtown San Diego on the freeways, you're going to see a lot of buff marks, and that's because people really bombed in San Diego. And I mean a lot of East Coast people and European people that didn't know of that scene in LA area in the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s, because it was just on smash. The freeways were on smash. For people that don't know, painting the backs of the freeway signs, the heavens out there, that was, I'm sure it had been done here and there in other places, but it really became a thing out in Southern California. Yeah. Now everybody. It was crazy, man. Yeah. Yeah, people were living the crazy life. Yeah, for these young riders, And you were too. But you just talked about having a gun put to your head, and for those, I've had that happen to me by a kid, 16-year-old kid, put a gun in my face, and everything changes for you when that happens. Everything changes. Yeah. I don't want to go into that experience too much because that's huge and heavy, but that's what was going on in California. A thing that was associated with this graph world in a way, still is, right? But it kind of treated it was like a filter to me, and it made me pick the people that I would surround myself with. Yeah. Absolutely. But yeah, so we were going down there, TDK yard, Pang, and then I got discovered. It was kind of weird. I had seen a newspaper clipping about these famous riders. They had a battle, kind of like the Slick and Hex battle, but they had one amongst themselves in downtown, and it was Quasar and Saki versus Zodak and Dives. These guys were the undisputed kings of San Diego. They were real dope, you know? And it's oh man, these guys, they're so sick, blah, blah, blah. But I had already started kind of painting downtown and started doing characters, and I learned some techniques from Pang, and I just started kind of making a little noise, and I guess I got on their radar, and I got a phone call. I was living with my grandmother at the time. I got a phone call from Sock one day, and he was like, yo, is this Persue? And I was like, yeah. And he was like, yo, this is Saki, blah, blah, blah. And he kind of wanted to feel me out, I think. He was talking to me and questioning me. I was like, okay. Then the next day, I get a phone call from Quasar. And Quasar was like, yo, Quasar, blah, blah, blah. I was like, yo, I can't even believe it. Right, two kings these from San Diego are calling me. Yeah, these are the upper echelon. These are the kings, the undisputed kings right now in San Diego. Yeah. I'm curious, style. How do they get your number? How do they contact you? I have no idea. I have no idea. To this day, I have no idea. But Quasar ends up becoming one of your mentors, and so that's something... Quasar. That day he called me. He's like, "I'm coming up." He wanted to beat Saki to me, I guess, because he wanted to be my mentor. He wanted. So he knew he wanted to bring you up. He saw something. I'm sorry. He wanted me to be his mentor. Yeah, that's right. So he was like, "I'm going to take you under my wing. I'm going to come up and get you, and we're going to kick it. We're going to draw. We're going to talk and shit." So he came up and picked me up, and we just started hanging out, man. We started traveling around San Diego. He brought me up to L.A. He brought me up to the Bay Area.
And so what year was that you guys first linked?
92.
Right. Okay. Yeah. And so Quasar was like, yeah, we knew of him in the Bay already, you know, like he was known. That dude was like so sick.
Yeah. Yeah. He's the one who put me on to Bay styles, you know, like Crayon and Twist and Aladdin and Picasso and kind of like what was Dream and Spy and all, what was happening up there, you know?
Yeah. And so I am curious about that because like there were only a few guys that we had known of, you know, at that point from down south in San Francisco. Like there's only a few people we knew. So you had Quasar taking you up there or showing you, was he showing you flicks? Like how, was like photos? Like
yeah, he had flicks. He had flicks.
Yeah. Because the hard copy.
So he was like, I would go over to Quasar's house and there would be an envelope, a big, you know, manila envelope on the desk, and it was like, it'd have a beautiful, like, marker drawing on it, and I picked it up. I go, what is this? He's like, oh, yeah, my friend Mike Giant just sent that to me from New Mexico.
Nice.
And it was, like, full of flicks and drawings, and it was all SBA style. And SBA is Quasar's crew. He put me in SBA.
That was
I'm like one of four members in SBA to this day. Nice. There was only 4 of us.
That was 92, that Mike Giant envelope
That was 92 that I saw that envelope. I hadn't met Mike Giant yet. I haven't befriended Mike yet.
Well, and so you're living down in San Diego, and so like, but in '92 when Quasar hollered at you, you clearly already had a style. You had like developed things. Were you like?
I had a character style loosely based off of what Zodak, well, really what Flick had brought to the game, and what Zodak was doing.
Which F-L-I-C-K.
And I couldn't do it as good as those guys. So I just developed my own aesthetic, and it started to kind of like, people liked it, and my name started getting around, and I just started to work on developing in that style.
And so, was Zodak from LA?
Got in the magazine and its reach.
Zodak is from LA, right?
Zodak is from San Diego.
Dude, there's a lot of like really dope heads that came out of San Diego.
Well, this is a story that Quasar told me. Quasar told me that a car full of heads, like Dies and Zodak and Chino and a few other guys drove up to L.A. to the Belmont Tunnel during some battle or something up there. It must have been the Risk and Slick battle or something.
Okay.
Right, the first one, the Aerosolics one. I'm sorry, it was the Slick and Hex battle with Risky doing the Aerosolics piece.
Yeah, okay.
I think they went up to go see that, and they brought home these L.A. techniques of cutting and fades and stuff like that, and they kept it secret from Quasar. And Quasar, like, took that personal and severed ties. His crew with them was called APS, and he stopped pushing APS, and he started SBA, and that's when I got introduced to him.
Interesting. And so you're getting, like, a lot of influence character-wise from Zodak and Flick. Where was Flick from?
Flick is originally from Hawaii, and Flick lived in LA.
Oh, you said Slick with an S. I'm sorry, I thought you said Flick with an F.
No, Slick, Kill to Succeed.
Oh, yes. Okay, of course. Okay, so you're taking character influence from those guys, and you're getting letter influence from dudes like Quasar, and you mentioned
I'm getting letter influence from Quasar at the time. I didn't know how to do straight letters. Quasar's style was based off of spheres, like circles, and it was like, if you were to think of Quasar and you needed to kind of pair him with someone, you would pair him with Vulcan. Like, he was doing that aesthetic, but round and fast. Like, it had a lot of, it wasn't straight up and down, it moved. It was like a hot rod across the wall, you know?
Dope.
And,
that's an awesome analogy.
And very space-like, very, very, very space-like. Mm-hmm. And so I was doing SBA pieces because that was our crew, so I was doing Quasar style. And I didn't start getting into straight letters until it must have been 10 years later. But there was a lot of other stuff in between. So I did a lot of character work and had a big influence on a lot of people nationally and internationally with my characters.
Yeah,
for
and
the
so
first probably 10 years of my career as a writer.
Let's just segue into that, because that's like, you know, like it's sort of the like face of your brand is Bunny Kitty. So maybe you can just walk us through a little bit of like the character timeline for you, because I know Bunny Kitty wasn't very early on, you were doing lots of stuff. You said you're 5 years old, you're starting characters. But when you really got like doing drawing and painting characters in earnest, can you just walk us through that a little bit?
Well, I started doing characters just because, you know, they just resonated with me, and I saw how they resonated to the other writers and to people outside of graffiti, like the public. Like they could better relate to it. And so I was the character guy and the background guy on the wall all the time, but really respected by my peers and by the community for it. So yeah, I mean, 91, I was painting bunnies in 91. I was painting pigs. I was painting a lot of animals. A lot of people, you know, I don't know, you know, like, it's just kind of like people liked it. And I liked it. I thought I was, you know, I was terribly modest, and I felt like I was a toy, you know. I mean, I really, like, if I really look back at it, for the first 10 years of writing graffiti, I was a toy. Even though I had made a mark and influenced a lot of people, I felt I was a toy, and that's probably why I was so quiet and timid around other people, because I didn't feel like I was on the level, because you had a lot of people that were really street bombers and, like, putting in a lot of work, where I was doing a lot of more. I was doing illegals, but I wasn't known for illegal graffiti. I was known, he just does characters. He doesn't know the true essence of graffiti writing. And, like, an aspect of it was, like, a part of it, yeah, that was probably correct, but that would all change when I met Wayne COD. But
nice, really.
Prior to that,
well, and actually, I want to just step back a second, because you have had this official mentor for a while, Quasar. Can you just talk because you and I have had conversations about, like, the lack of mentorship or the lack of dudes bringing other dudes up, you know, and right. But you had one. Can you just tell us a little bit about what it was like to have a dude like Quasar guiding you?
Oh man, I mean, it was kind of like having an encyclopedia of street aesthetic and knowledge, and even outside of graffiti, you know, it's just about life and people and community. And you know, Quasar is a mixed cat. He's half Mexican, half black. And to see how and to listen to how he is perceived by the community outside of being Mexican and black, by the white community, and just kind of like getting put on game about just the reality of situations, you know, because I was, like I said, I was raised in a very whitewashed community, you know, and I was raised by a mother that didn't believe in racism. So she kind of instilled in us that we were all kind of like the same. So I didn't know what racism was, and then, like, you know, to hang out with somebody who had to deal with it every day, it was a real eye-opener. No.
Yeah, and that's interesting that, like, one of the first things you bring up is, like, not like necessarily an artistic sort of leader for you, but like a social one. You know, that's pretty interesting.
Well,
cool.
Well, I think graffiti is a very social practice, you know, and I you know, like, yeah, you know, we talk about, you know, in our community that, yeah, it brings us together, but, like, there's a lot of, like, torment within our community too, you know?
Well, right, and I've heard you say, and we've talked about just, like, the hyper sort of masculine nature of this community, or this, like, this subculture, even though there's plenty of women, of course, involved, and plenty of dudes who aren't, like, so hyper masculine, but of course there's always that element, that alpha sort of element.
Right. Especially in the early West Coast scene.
Yeah, West Coast, everybody had something to prove, which was probably what New Yorkers would say as well about their experience. But yeah, always something to prove, and just that ego just comes in.
Yeah, I listened to a lot of the hip-hop stuff that people were listening to, or all the rap music. I knew all that stuff. I was on it, you know, but I was also listening to the Smiths, and I was listening to Joy Division, and I was listening to all this stuff that, like, if they knew I was listening to it, they would think I was fucking crazy. So I kept a lot of it kind of under wraps.
You know, you had said a second ago about you felt like a toy. When did you, like, come out of that and be like, when did, like, a confidence thing kind of come over you? Maybe you can just talk about that with your characters or your letters, whatever. But when did that, when did it solidify?
I guess I can't. I got to tell a story. I got to kind of keep it within, like, a timeline still, because like, after Quasar and I kind of, like, split up, like, Quasar had a drinking issue, you know, like, he drank too much, and it was like, it was fucking with him. He was around people that, like, instead of encouraging him, they were bringing him down. Yeah. And I remember going to a wall with him, and he was faded. And we walked up to this cat, and he was like bum rushing the dude, and was like, "Yo, you know who the fuck I am? What's my name? What's my name?" And the guy was like, you know. And I was like, it kind of like bugged me out, and I was like, "Yo, like, you don't even need acknowledgement from this guy.
Yeah.
You know, why are you letting it bother you? You know." And it was the alcohol. And so, like, in '94, I met Joker VA. He was living in San Diego. He had moved there from Washington, I believe. And his outlook was similar to mine, and he listened to a lot of, like, music that I listened to, and he was a graffiti writer. And so we linked up, and I started hanging out with Joker, Jerry Insco on the regular. I mean, we went to LA, we went record shopping, we wrote graffiti.
I forgot you were also, you used to write Transcend as well, right?
Well, he started Transcend.
Yeah.
And the first two crew members in Transcend was She-One in London and me. And then, you know, like, he started to expand the crew and stuff like that afterwards. But Transcend was, you know, the name came from a group of, you know, elite poets and people that thought outside the box. It was like an old group from the 1800s or 1700s. I don't know. It was really old. They were called the Transcendental group or something like that. Yeah, and so he took that name from that thought, because we were doing things with my characters. I was doing things outside of the normal, like, graffiti parameters.
Yeah. And like,
he was doing letters outside of that as well.
Way
and so,
outside
like,
the box.
I started mixing the SBA style with, like, Joker-esque type stuff too, but it was very much my own at that point. But it was influenced, like, there was no rules, you know what I mean? Like, it was like I could do anything I wanted.
Yeah, and that's what you guys did. You guys did whatever you wanted, and, like, a lot of people sleep on Transcendental Crew or Transcend Crew, and you guys were killing shit, doing, like, really bugged out futuristic productions. Like, it was really unique, and that crew wasn't really, like, I mean, I wouldn't say it was really active for a long time, but, like, the artists within it, all the artists that I know that are associated with that crew are still killing it today, you know? So that's cool to hear the beginnings of that. I got a little sidetracked here. I think you were trying to stay on a timeline after Quasar, after you and Quasar weren't kicking it.
I spent quite a few years with Joker, and then he ended up moving to San Francisco. But by then, I was already friends with Mike Giant. I think I had met Mike Giant in '94 or something like that.
Let me back up a second, because you said you met Jerry in '94, Joker in '94. Was that it? Did he come to San Diego?
Yeah, I met him in San Diego, and I want to say I met Giant around the same time. '93, '94, I met Giant.
Did Mike come through San Diego?
Mike Giant is an honorary San Diegan, you know.
Is that,
he's well respected and well loved within our.
Of course he is, and for people that don't know, he's from Albuquerque. But so, did he ever live in Dago? I didn't know if he ever did.
No, he was coming out there at a young age to skateboard and hang out with his family on vacations at the beach, and then he was exposed to graffiti, and then he started seeking out the same things, you know, and he found all the people that I was hanging out with, you know. So it was kind of like, we just kind of like got connected through Quasar.
And I feel like 94-ish is when Mike moved to the Bay, if he wasn't already there by 93, actually, right? So you met Mike, you know Joker, and they're up in SF.
So I started traveling up there.
Right. So you're going up and down the coast even more, right? Because you were going up to LA, which is about, like, whatever, an hour drive or so from Dago, and then now you're doing the longer drive coming up to SF. And
so, like, mid-90s, I was going to visit Mike and Jerry. And then,
so was this when you were when you had, like, something click that you were like, I am no longer a fucking toy, I'm actually killing shit?
No, I was like, I was happy with some of the stuff I was doing, but not happy at all. I'm sort of a sadomasochist, you know, like when it comes to, like, my art and I guess me as a person, you know, like, I need torment to create.
Nice.
And that's when you're going to get the best work out of me, probably.
Nice. Yeah, and, you know, there's nothing worse than, I think, someone who gets comfortable with what they're doing, you know? Because the moment you get comfortable and you're not moving forward, you're just, you know, going in circles, and it's not inspirational. So
I'm still in my 20s, and then I started meeting more writers. Like, more writers were starting to reach out to me in the Bay Area, and I started, like, I would go up and I'd spend the weekend with Poem TDK.
Nice.
And then I would go up there and hang out with Apex, BA, and TDK. And Apex and Poem, you know, like, I went up there on a trip, and I met Mike Dream, and it was the first piece. It was the first time he was going to piece. It was like his comeback. You know, he had dealt with some shit. Mm-hmm. And we went out to this discreet location that Apex had. And it was me, Spy, Smash, Apex. I forget. Maybe a photographer by the name of Ari Winograd. And he documented the entire thing.
Dude, I should have fucking been there. I don't know why Apex didn't call me that night. I'm bent. I'm pissed now. When was this, man? This is like... Well, if Dream was still alive, it was mid-90s.
This is like probably 96. It was probably right when I got into COD.
Earlier, I think.
Wayne.
Nice. So you're with Poem and those guys and you're painting. Where was that? Where was Apex's spot? Was it in Frisco?
Oh, man, I don't know. Daly City, maybe.
Oh,
it was like some band. It was under a tunnel in a trackside, but it was like just like this. It was in the middle of nowhere. It was like a freestanding little tunnel.
I mean, I'm sure you were right about Daly City, because that's where he was living, so that would make sense. So
yeah,
go ahead.
And so, like, you know, I have like some fond memories of the Bay Area, and you know, painting with Mike, Giant, and Joker, and the last two times that Dream had painted, I was there with him painting.
Nice. And you know, like the first time you and I painted together was when we did that wall. With Mike and with Spy, and the whole, you know, Cantu was in town. Your crew, your stick-up kids were there. That was an epic wall.
I brought Cantu and Seamso up there. Right, I brought Wayne and those guys into there too.
Yeah. I mean, and that wall was like, that was a super unique wall. There were so many Bay heads, and then people from all over the world, you know, which was like
it was
Frisco.
It was really cool. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, that production was amazing. And for me, dude, to be painting with all of those heads, I was like, whoa, man, it was impressive.
You know, but so to go back to like getting comfortable with my style, like I was over painting characters. You know, I was tired of it. I wanted to expand. I had done a lot of pieces, but I just didn't have a style. Mm-hmm. You know, and I think I was on tour. I'd already been in COD for a few years. I got in COD, I think, around 96.
How did you make that connection with Wayne?
I met someone I was working with. Like, I got a big history in skateboarding, like branding. Like, I branded a lot of really big skateboard brands, you know, as far as like the founding artists for these you know, things.
Yep.
And so that was my day job. And I was working with someone who was down with FC and Wayne had lived with Wayne at one point, and he said to me, he's like, yo, I want to introduce you to my friend Wayne. And Wayne and I met at a trade show in Las Vegas in 96, 95 or 96 or something like that. And I called him, and we spoke, and then he realized, like, okay, he writes, and he does good characters, and he's good at it, you know, and then, but the graphic design stuff he's doing is way more advanced than anything I've seen. Mm-hmm. So he was like really kind of like, yo, like this guy Persue's got something, like he's doing something real kind of fresh and outside of the box. And I think that Wayne he's really into graphic design. First and foremost, you know, like he loves graphic design, you know. So like, you know, I'd share techniques and we'd talk, and, you know, he wasn't familiar with the West Coast, and he had his opinions about it. And I was like, well, you know, before you have your opinions, you should come out to the West Coast and take a look at it with, you know, yourself, you know. And so I bought him a ticket, and he came out to the West Coast, and I drove him up to the Bay Area, and we did a lot of street bombing, and he just fell in love with the West Coast, and he just started coming back to the West Coast as much as he possibly could.
So that was his first trip out? That was the first time that Wayne came out to the West Coast?
Yeah.
Nice.
That was probably 97, 97, 98.
Uh-huh.
And then, was it?
Yeah, because we did that wall, that big wall in 98, I want to say. It might have even been 99, because I feel like Mike was killed, Mike Dream was killed not long right after. I mean, because he was killed in late 99, or early 2000, I mean. So, it had to be right around that time, right?
Yep.
And so you've been COD. I mean, since we mentioned Can 2 and Seams, like, how did the Stick Up Kids connection happen?
I got down with Stick Up Kids almost kind of like the same way. Like, I met Can 2 maybe, I don't know if it was before. I think it was like, I must have met him like in 98. I think 98 I got into Stick Up Kids.
How did that happen? How did it happen?
He was on the West Coast. And Bobby Ruiz from Tribal was like, yo, Dave, Cantu's in town. He wants to paint.
Nice.
You know, can you arrange something? So I was like, yeah, I could arrange something. So we painted together for the first time. And then, like, you know, we got to know each other. I showed him what I was working on. He was impressed. And he was like, yo, I want you to be in Stick Up Kids.
Were Stick Up Kids based in
But these are very, like, these are very quasi-type. Like, Stick Up Kids is a very quasi-type crew. It's like, kind of like big name, you know, in different parts of the world. It's an international crew. It's not like a very tight crew like, say, like BA or CBS or you know, stuff like that is.
But are they based in Germany, or some of those original heads?
Yeah, the original heads have a lot of history together. Like, you know, the Adam out there and Cantu, like those guys grew up together, you know, so they're real tight. But yeah, they're from Cantu's from Mines. Well, I went out there a couple times to visit.
And that's such a cool thing about crews, you know, is that it can be loose, but in a way kind of appear tight. And then when you get together, you get to paint, and it's just on. It's like it's a cool part of the culture that I think people don't like kind of give enough credit to.
Right.
But so I want to
go back. I got to go back just a little bit to 95. Like in 95, when I was splitting ties with Quasar, I was in their living room and they were getting faded, and I was like, guys, I'm going to take this thing way more serious. This graffiti thing, I'm taking it way more serious. I'm going to go international with it. And they all laughed at me. I was like, oh, okay. You know? And I was like, I'm going to Europe next month. I got my ticket. I'm out. You know? And they were like, yeah, well, okay, blah, 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 you know, getting faded. I was like, all right. And I just left. You know, I had enough.
Hey, had you already been able to use any European paint at that point, 95?
No, well, in 95 is when I went to Norway. Okay. And that night was the first night when I was there. I was on tour with the skaters, some pro skaters, and we were touring throughout Europe. And I met this writer by the name of Goal, Goal. He's in AIO, you know, Bates' crew. Okay. And he's in WCA as well. But I met him. I was in Norway for 15 minutes before I had met him and this guy Pay 2. And that night, we went out to do a night spot. But it was funny, it wasn't even nighttime, like the sun didn't even go down in Norway. It was my first international experience. And I was using this paint, this Norwegian paint called Quick. And it was like really good paint.
Quick.
And,
nice.
Yeah, Quick. And he had some Auto K, and I don't even know if Dalton was around, but maybe like a form of Dalton was there too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It was the first time I used European paint, and the first time I ever painted in Europe, and it was 95. And so, like, I took off from there, and I went down to Germany with the team. And outside of this skate contest, it was called the Munster skateboarding contest. It was like where everybody all over the world, all the skaters conjugated for this huge contest at the end of the summer or something like that.
Nice.
It's called Munster Jam.
Okay.
And outside this Munster Hall was a Hall of Fame. And I was just walking down this wall of like these colors I'd never seen before ever. And then I was like, yo, these colors, jungle green, aqua pastels, and the shit you couldn't get your hands on, you know? And like,
yeah. And
I walked up to this big wall, and this guy got done busting this 2-story building, and I was like, oh shit. And I walked up to him, introduced myself, and this guy, he wrote Sula, S-U-L-A, and he had a magazine called King Style Magazine, and I showed him my flicks, and he's all, oh shit, yeah, man, you should paint with us tomorrow. We're having a jam. And he pulled out this poster, and on this poster, you know, the virus, you know, the Holland virus was coming into town. 123K Clan was going to be there. Sub 8, Pazer, Cantu, Dime, like these guys were all going to paint the wall, you know.
Nice.
And now I found myself like, yo, I'm painting the wall with these cats.
Nice.
And so like in '95, I started getting involved with the European scene as well, you know. So like I started going back to Europe every single year, maybe even 2 times a year, to go write graffiti. So in '99, I went on a European tour with COD, and Dash FC was there. It was Dash FC, Virus, Sabar 7, Wen, COD, Wayne, Cover COD, and we were doing an event in Norway that Goal had set up.
Okay.
And I remember showing Dash my letters, and he said to me, "Oh, you got that confusion style." And I was like, Confusion style? Confusion style? What's that? You know, he's like, yo, it doesn't make any sense. Oh, fuck.
Nice.
Yo, like, and it just dawned on me. I was like I knew it, like, in '95, I knew I had to step up my illustration game, and that's what kind of catapulted me into being a better illustrator. And then in '99, meeting Dash and him saying that to me was like, yo, I need to become a better stylist.
Yo, was he like referencing that maybe your letters were somewhere between like a wild style and a straight letter or something? Like what was like they didn't know what they were doing? That's confusion, or what? I
think he was looking at it as like, yo, I had no style, and like everything was all over the place, and it was true because I was trying to do things. At that point, I wasn't even doing SBA style, and I wasn't even doing Transcend style. I was doing some other bullshit.
Well, and you know, it's funny since you brought up Mike multiple times, Mike Giant, and Giant influenced me a lot. And when I first met him, dude, I brought this book to show him, right? It was '94, I think. Brought this sketchbook that I had that was just full of wild styles, dude, right? Like the whole thing, just like crazy out of control. Not very good, but crazy out of control. And he flipped through it, and he looked me in the eye, and he was like, "Where are your straight letters?" Or he said, "Where are your simples?" Yeah. He said, "Where are your simples?" And I was like, fuck, I haven't done those in years. And he was like, "Go back to basics, you know?" And I was like, oh shit, interesting. So it kind of sounds a little similar actually than Dash is saying to you, you know.
Yeah, so I took, in '98, I remember telling Joker, I was like, yo, I think I'm going to stop writing graph. I'm done. I'm tired of it, blah, blah, blah. I'm bored. And that was probably because I just did characters, you know? Mm-hmm. But in '99, I didn't give up. He was like, yo, you're fucking crazy. Shut the fuck up. You know? I was like, okay. So I kept it going. I was just feeling sorry. I was probably depressed or something. And so, like, when I was in Norway, yeah, that was it, man. We went to Denmark and we met with Bates, you know, and Ken 20 and Twos and these guys. Mm-hmm. And like these guys were they were savage already, man. They were like, I seen toy stuff, you know, like I've seen stuff in '95, and every year I went back to Europe, and like that European style was beautiful. Yep. You know, it was like an evolution of New York graffiti, and nobody was painting like that on the West Coast, but it had influenced so greatly on that trip that I came back to California and started painting styles along European, like really kind of New York, like my favorite era of New York mixed with Europe, and then a little bit of LA West Coast vibe.
Sure, yeah.
You know?
And
so that was like 90 and 2000.
And so, for the sake of time, I think a lot of people listening are probably like, well, Bunny Kitty, when are we getting into this Bunny Kitty? And I want you to be able to take a little bit of time to explain the evolution and story of that, because it's been such a big part of your career, and especially now, maybe one of the biggest things going on. But I don't want to stop this flow that you got going about your lettering, because you call yourself a character guy, but for me, it was always characters and letters that I appreciated from you. So
I do both. I do both now, you know.
Yeah, and so '98,
I'm comfortable with both.
'98, you come back from Europe and you're back in San Diego, and you start putting it down. Is that when you started feeling good?
I started. Well, I was still doing I'm still trying to figure it out. But Wayne was a big influence, and I would come out to New York. That's when I started traveling out to New York, and he was bringing me around to meet people, and we were doing night spots. I learned how to be a bomber, you know, 10 years after the fact.
That's what you were saying, that you started, but you didn't really get going for another 10 years.
But I had done dirt, but not like the dirt I was about to do.
Yeah, and so So Wayne influences your letters a lot. The Europeans influenced it a lot. I know you draw a ton. Were you drawing a lot of letters, or were you going to walls and learning letters? What kind of a writer were you?
I was drawing a lot of letters, and I was even doing individual letter styles. And I remember Wayne had told me, it was like he had seen like the evolution of me getting better at letters, and he was like seeing that I was drawing individual letters, and he's like, "Oh, when you start doing individual letters like that, stylized like that, it means you're getting better. You're really grasping the concept and getting it."
Nice.
You know? And so like I would just do letter studies. I would pick a letter and I would do a bunch of different studies, you know. And then probably I would say 2001 is when I had my breakthrough of style.
Okay.
And 2001 and 2002 is around the time I met Revoke, and I met him at an Andy Howell art show, and he had given me props because he had seen some of my new pieces, and he was like, I like the direction of the style you're going in, because he was making a change in his style too. He was getting way more, he was bringing it in, and he had more of it. He had the LA aesthetic, but it had a very European feel to it as well, you know? Like,
yeah.
So we kind of like, we started talking at that point.
And so by 2001, were you putting in as much time on letters as you were with characters, or what was like sort of the percentage, maybe? I was doing more letters. Yeah. I was actually doing more illegal graffiti. I was doing more letters. I was, you know, when I would travel abroad, I was painting trains. I was doing dirt. Nice.
You know? And I was partying. I was having a good time.
Good.
You know?
And so, can you walk us through the Bunny Kitty history?
Oh, Bunny Kitty. Bunny Kitty was just a mashing of two characters I always drew. So cats and rabbits. And, you know, like, because I have a big history in building brands like DC Shoes and all these other companies, like, people always ask me when I was going to do my own thing, and I wanted to do something that was out of the box for me, and something that could potentially be a lot bigger than a T-shirt company. And I think a lot of people thought I was just going to start a T-shirt company, and I was going to get a couple of pro skaters, and it was going to be this and that. But I didn't want to do that. That wasn't my calling. It just was like, I already do that for a lot of people. Yep. You know, like, that's what I do already. Like, I want to do something different. But it wasn't until I got into the skate industry in '92, so I was riding these two roads at once. You know what I mean? Like, I was doing graffiti, and I was pioneering graffiti and stuff. I was pioneering, I guess, what would become streetwear. You know?
Yeah.
And so I did both of those simultaneously. So one night I had drawn this cat in a bunny suit, and the first drawing I did, I mean, it didn't look like the character it does now. I mean, what people see now is 15 years later. You know, so 15 years ago when I drew this character, it was it looked like a stoned cat that was wearing a wet sock. You know. But I refined it. I looked at like some other things, and I drew I drew it more and more. And I started talking to Toast. That's when I started hanging out with Toast a lot. Was early 2000s. Toast had moved to San Diego, and so he helped me kind of like develop like understanding of how to draw.
Toast from Denmark?
From Switzerland.
He's Switzerland. Okay.
Yeah, I met him after a night of painting with Dare and Rest in Peace and Cantu and this guy Resso.
Wow.
In 2001 or 2000 or something. So he moved to San Diego, but like he helped me develop the character, and then I took it from there. And I don't know, it was just always something I kind of like felt like, oh, I could just draw. It's kind of like, it's different, it's cute, you know, like street art hadn't started yet, you know. And to me, Bunny Kitty was my Bodeism, you know. So
that's really interesting, dude. That's a cool comparison to make.
Yeah, you know, I told when I met Mark the first time when I was on the exchange tour in 2007 up in LA at 111 Minna, I said, hey, this is my character Bunny Kitty. I introduced him to it. So, that's real cool. It's real cute, man. Maybe we should do something like, you know, like a little sex scene between Cheech Wizard and Bunny Kitty. You know, maybe Bunny Kitty could suck Cheech Wizard's dick or something.
Whoa.
I was like, huh?
Whoa.
Whoa. I was like, huh? And I was like, wait, did he diss me or did he...
Or does he want to collaborate, you know?
Or does he want to have sex with Bunny Kitty? And I was like, you know, I kind of like, okay, cool. Yeah, all right. And then like, I kept it moving, and then like, I ended up years later drawing the seen. And he hasn't seen it yet, but it's in one of my books. I have I have a picture of Cheech Wizard giving Bunny Kitty, sucking on a pussy, and then Bunny Kitty sucking Cheech Wizard's dick.
That's amazing, dude. Wow. Okay,
but I saw him again years later, and I told him, yeah, Bunny Kitty is my bodeism, and he was like mad flattered.
Nice.
Blah blah blah. So if you think of Bunny Kitty, it's just like right now, 15 years later after I've done this, like I released the children's book and some products and stuff like that. It's been a labor of love, and been something like where people were like, "Why the fuck do you fuck around? You're such a talented dude." I was like, "Well, I'm building a brand. It's a family brand. Yeah. It's not just for graffiti writers. Like I'm building something that I want to be, I want it to be big, and I want it to be something that people can like gravitate to that doesn't have to know anything about graffiti. That's like part of my story is like I brand things. Like,
well, and also you had mentioned at the beginning of this talk about reinvention, right? And so this taking Bunny Kitty off of the street and into a children's book, right? Now that's not like it's things like that have happened before, right? But for you, this is a departure. This is something new. And you must have felt in your gut, you're like, this is right. This is the right way to go. And sure enough, the response has been awesome and huge. And you're getting all these accolades, dude. And, congratulations. But yeah, dude, to be able to then navigate these new waters of being a published author and I don't know if you're doing a book tour. Can we find you at Barnes & Noble one of these days in the kids section, reading the thing to, 100 New York City kids? I hope that's going to happen.
You'll probably find me in a library before Barnes & Noble, but I've done things at elementary schools already, and I could see some more of that happening. I have a publishing deal, but it's an independent type situation, so a lot of the marketing and a lot of the push comes from, me having to create it. So a lot of really good doors have opened, I met the Comic-Con people, and so I've been doing the Comic-Con and introducing the Bunny Kitty through that. And Bunny Kitty has had some history within the whole designer toy world through the early 2000s. So a lot of people remember Bunny Kitty, and they're happy to see it again. They're happy to see me involved with it, and now they really understand where I come from. Like in the past, they didn't really understand the graffiti thing and the street art thing, but now that they know me on a much bigger scale, I think it helps them to understand this guy is the real deal.
Well, and that's a whole other thing, right? Like this new acceptance of things graph related. Some of these other interviews I've done in the past, I want to talk about how the internet changed things. And for some reason, I don't even want to get into that with you because I think people listening and myself, we know how you used it as a tool.
We already know that.
Right.
Story.
And
we know the story,
it's interesting to hear about the newfound acceptance, possibly the newfound acceptance, having to do with so much time has passed. There was a seed planted in the early 2000s with Bunny Kitty toys. Do you have any plans that you can tell us about to do more toys? I know you've done plush Bunny Kitties, and that's been pretty big or pretty good for you.
Yeah, the plush things worked out pretty good. I released that with the Indiegogo campaign for the book. And I've been talking to a company in California about producing a toy. So I think in 2017 you'll see the first Bunny Kitty toy.
Nice. And
some other products that I'm going to be involved with too. So lots of good things happening with Bunny Kitty. I think that it's important to people to realize that there's entire cast of characters that go along with Bunny Kitty, and that if you look at some of the history, if you were to kind of look back at the last 15 years of Bunny Kitty, I've kind of been living it already. If you look at I created an entire rock and roll band by the name of the Sluggernaut, and they're a real band that really plays real music that performs live from time to time on Halloween, and they're kind of like the Misfits.
Nice.
And there's another the chapter book I released now is a children's book and a family book, and one was filled with morals and tells the story of being brave and rising to the occasion and solidarity and stuff like that. Future book will be a little bit more raw, but not adult. It'll be more like a comic book, and it will encompass stories of graffiti and tales of riders, and it will talk about rock and roll and what the city has to offer as opposed to the country, and it'll tell a completely different story. So like now, like we'll look at Bunny Kitty, it's really cute, but it's going to start to evolve in the next couple of years into like what I've kind of like have already been kind of living.
That's dope. That's dope. And I look forward to seeing that. You know, I don't know if everybody knows that the Bunny Kitty book that's out now, you hand painted all of it. Which gives it that look, a very, very, you know, it's just a clean, unique look for a children's book. I know that was painstaking for you. I wonder about this new one, this comic book. What's the medium going to be?
The process. Definitely not hand painted.
Yeah, I know you. Yeah.
I will probably illustrate all the pictures, maybe by ink, and color it on the computer.
Mm-hmm. Nice. And,
yeah, that's probably the route I will go this time around.
That's pretty fresh.
Yeah.
And so,
but I want the drawings and everything to exist in an analog type. So these are tangible items, you know, because it's important, I believe, to have those and not to let go of the analog. You have to have a part of that in your life. Like if you go completely digital, man, you know, I mean that's I don't want to sound crazy, but that's the end, my friend.
Yeah,
you know, and like,
can you talk a little bit more about like your, I don't know, passion for things handmade, hand painted?
Well, I mean, like it's a craft. It's just a craft, you know, something that exists that's created by man's and women's imaginations, you know, and like who wouldn't want something that was created by a hand, you know, an artist's hands.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's funny. I was painting a wall with Slick in Hawaii at this powwow event, and this old lady rolled up in her wheelchair or something like that. She said to Slick, or to someone, she was like, "Take me to your leader," you know? And like, so I end up being the leader for this particular night or something like that, right? So like I ended up like listening to this lady talk to me about analog versus digital and Time Warner and all this stuff, all this heavy mess. And here I am like listening to my elder, you know, about like what the fuck's about to happen and what's happening, you know, right now, you know, and me coming from an analog like era and like having a smartphone and like Instagram and all this stuff and like it's a distraction, you know, and it's a distraction to life. It's almost like a culture. I mean, it brings people together on a worldwide scale. But man, I remember the days I used to have to seek out what I wanted to find, whether it was graffiti or a stylist or somebody that I wanted to find. I had to go seek that person out.
Or whatever it was. It was a pen you wanted, a pair of kicks you wanted, whatever it was, right?
Anything.
Like having to go on that mission to get it, like it made the reward so much sweeter, you know?
Yeah. And I think that like now, you know, these a lot of younger people are just like, they're easy to they have it at the tip of their fingers, you know, like it's just accessible. Yeah. You know, and so with that comes expectations and future technologies and blah blah blah.
Sure.
But like,
and you know, I want to go. I want to just step back to that lady that was in Hawaii. And what did you say about like the paying respect to like that older generation or respecting your elders or something like that? Is that what you were saying?
Well, I think that's important. You know, I mean, I think it's important to listen to stories, you know, of how things were and how things, you know, may play out.
Yeah, and you know, and that makes me think about, you know, I never met her, but your mom, and like there's been so much that's gone on within your family, and the connection of your mother to Bunny Kitty. Yeah. Can you talk about that for a little bit?
Oh, yeah, man, of course. My mom was my collaborator on the project. I had written the story 11 years ago, and it collected dust in my computer for a long time. Until I was done working in the skate industry, I just was like, I'd experienced a huge valley, man. Like, I stopped working in the industry. It was kind of like a different world. Nike and Adidas and these big companies came in and sucked it dry and kind of took the essence of what skateboarding was. And they had tried for 20-something years. And they finally got it. And so there was a lot of people were being affected. And I almost got a job at Nike, but I took a different job, working for a smaller skate company and more of a mom and pop thing, because I have a thing for underdogs. I prefer underdogs over
Sure.
the monstrosity.
Yeah, sure thing. Yeah, definitely.
Something more romantic about it.
Mm-hmm.
So, that kind of came to an end, and I lived off of unemployment and odd jobs and things for years, and I remember, like, Wayne was such a huge advocate for Bunny Kitty, and a couple other friends were like, yo, like, you always have yourself to fall back on, like, you have history. And so, like, someone gave me a lot of momentum, and I don't want to go into that person because I'm not on talking terms with that person, and I think that, there's no closure in that issue right now, so I don't want to talk about that all too much, but somebody had given me, like, a good push, and I owe a thank you to that person, but not an apology.
Okay.
But I am experiencing the momentum of something that I had put out in the universe over a decade ago, and I asked my mom for her help with the Bunny Kitty project to help me edit the story, and so she did that, and I needed a magic spell, and she was always really talented at writing songs and stuff like that, and she came up with the magic spell for the story to make Bunny Kitty magic. Nice. And my mom, she was diagnosed with Alzheimer's probably a year or two after we had finished the project. This was, this is 11 years ago, when we finished writing it. And, when she got worse and worse, I was like, I put everything in storage. And I kissed my daughter and gave her the biggest hug, and I moved to New York City. And, it was, I knew that if I moved to New York, I could use the energy and the momentum that New York offers people if you kind of channel the energy right. Yep. And you take it serious and you don't take it for granted, that you could do profound things in the city. Yeah. And it kind of helped that I was kind of an established cat already when meeting people. So, there was a level of respect from certain heads, which was nice. Yeah. And it was mutual to people. And to be in your 40s and to make a move like that, it's scary, Definitely. But I felt like, to lose it all and to fall on your face, like, I'd rather fall on my face in New York City than anywhere else in the world, where at least I knew I gave it a shot. Yeah. And my whole intention was to release this children's book in the name of my late mom and Bunny Kitty. So I made the move, and, it took me about 4 months to paint the pictures. And it took almost a year to get it out to the public with the campaign. And 1X Run was a huge help in doing that. And my girlfriend, Ali Bautista, was a huge supporter in helping me even paint the pictures. Nice. So now we're experiencing the momentum of people. They're finally getting. Now imagine it's like 2 years. So we did the campaign a year ago, and now it's 2 years. I've gotten a book deal with Ginkgo Press, but it took a year to get the entire production printed and in our hands. And now this week, as I speak, the orders are going out to all the contributors. Nice. So, phase 1 of Bunny Kitty is happening right now. That's awesome, dude. And, congratulations again. And, and it must just be it's a passion project for you, but it also is your brand. And again, it's a reinvention. It's cool, man. It's from my perspective, dude, super inspirational. I think a lot of people feel that way. Thank you. So I hope you feel good about it. And like I said to you before we started recording, I want to do part 2, right? Because there's so much more I think you and I could talk about, because I can't even get into right now, getting into your future, what else you have planned, because we got to keep this podcast to a certain time frame. Sure. But I think what would be really awesome, man, is for you to tell people how we can find you, follow you, hire you or commission you. You want to give us that info? I think the best way to get, if you just want to follow what I'm kind of doing from time to time, my Instagram is always good. It's at Persue1, so that's PERSUE with the number 1. Bunny Kitty has her own handle as well. That's @_Bunny Kitty, one word, _.
Who has more followers today?
Persue. I'm hoping that changes.
Probably will.
You know, because one day I'm going to kill off Persue. Persue is not going to.
Okay, good. Well, be careful what you wish for, man. You never know, right? And you have what's your website?
Website, Dave Persue, and bunnykitty.com. Those are two different sites.
Nice.
And, if you want to email me, it's mr.persue@gmail.com.
Awesome, man. Dude, again, like I said at the top, man, because you're just sort of one of my big inspirations early on, having you here was imperative, and awesome to talk with you. Again, this was My Life in Letters, episode 6. We're talking to Dave Persue. Are you in New York right now, Dave?
I am.
Cool, man. Let's go get this. Let's go get a couple of walls or a truck maybe this week.
Let's make it happen, man. Adam, I'm glad to have met you, man. Thank you for giving me a voice.
Yeah, it's good. It's good to reconnect with you, and I'm super happy to be doing this thing.
Yeah.
So thank you. That's it. Peace.
Cool. Peace.
Also, I want to give a shout out to my engineer and editor, Uzi Ego.